On to the next chapter of the build, the fuel system. My brother Weston came up and helped me pull the gas tank out the other day. And as you can see by the fuel pump assembly, the gas tank was not in any better of condition. I guess it's not quite as chunky, but it's not great. So I've ordered a Deutschwerks fuel pump assembly. I'm going to see, this thing still moves. I'm going to see if I can salvage this guy, the fuel level sender. It's not pretty, but I think it's salvageable. I've got a new fuel pump, and I have taken the gas tank and filled it with a 50-50 mixture of vinegar and water. And so I'm going to let this sit for about 2 days. Then I'll come back, rinse it out, fill it with baking soda and water, and rinse it out again. That's supposed to help prevent it from flash rusting. In theory, my my fuel pump assembly will arrive by then, and if it does, then I will get that all put together and get that thing back in the car. The Deutschwerks assembly comes with AN6 fittings, which is perfect because I've got a kit to go AN6 from the back all the way to the front. And that'll replace these hard lines down here that are in the way anyways. So that's kind of good. All right, I'll come back in a couple days. On to the next chapter of the build, the fuel system. My brother Weston came up and helped me pull the gas tank out the other day. And as you can see by the fuel pump assembly, the gas tank was not in any better of condition. I guess it's not quite as chunky, but it's not great. So I've ordered a Deutschwerks fuel pump assembly. I'm going to see, this thing still moves. I'm going to see if I can salvage this guy, the fuel level sender. It's not pretty, but I think it's salvageable. I've got a new fuel pump, and I have taken the gas tank and filled it with a 50-50 mixture of vinegar and water. And so I'm going to let this sit for about 2 days. Then I'll come back, rinse it out, fill it with baking soda and water, and rinse it out again. That's supposed to help prevent it from flash rusting. In theory, my my fuel pump assembly will arrive by then, and if it does, then I will get that all put together and get that thing back in the car. The Deutschwerks assembly comes with AN6 fittings, which is perfect because I've got a kit to go AN6 from the back all the way to the front. And that'll replace these hard lines down here that are in the way anyways. So that's kind of good. All right, I'll come back in a couple days. Okay, I've let the tank soak in the vinegar water mixture for a couple days. It froze, the temperatures got down to freezing night before last, so I had a couple of old aquarium heaters that I tossed in here. And I also threw an aquarium pump just to keep the water circulating. And I mean, if you look now, it's just all this grody, gunky water, which is great. Yes, thank you, ducks. Yes, thank you. You're being very helpful. So, now I'm going to dump this out, and then I will rinse it off with water, pour in some baking soda, spread that around, then rinse it off again. Check out how gross this water is here as it comes out. It's all brown, which is good. It's all that crap coming out. Ugh. So looking inside, you can see where it's broken up, the rust and crud, and where it's still on the actual tank. I'm gonna hit it with a hose and see if that helps at all. I rinsed it out a bunch of times, and pretty much everywhere where water hit, where there was still rust on the surface, the rust came right off. So everywhere that I can see, the rust has been removed. I tried to feel and spray back and shake things as best I can. There's no way I'm gonna get every bit of it out. But with the new particulate filter on the filter here on the pump here and my fuel filter, I'm not worried about it getting in the injectors. I've also got a analog gauge on the fuel pressure regulator and a digital well, a sensor on the actual fuel system. So if I ever do see the fuel pressure drop, I'll know that it's probably clogging one of the filters and I should go ahead and clean things out again. But the big chunks are gone, which is awesome. Now I'm doing the baking soda rinse where there's no real set amount, just a bunch of baking soda in the tank. Let it soak for a bit. And this neutralizes the vinegar and helps prevent flash rusting. This just has to sit for a little while, so let it sit for like a half hour. I'll toss the heaters and the pump back in just to circulate the stuff, and then do laundry, I guess, and come back out. And then I'll empty it out and hit it with an air hose the best I can to dry it out. By the way, if you want to feel important, get a bunch of chickens. Just walking on the yard, and I have a chicken army following me now. All right, and the result is awfully impressive, if you ask me. You can see just the nice shiny metal on the bottom. Let's see if it'll focus in the dark. Probably not. There we go. It's a little better. That's not rusty anymore. Like, the difference is substantial. However, is it possible to know if I got every bit of rust out? No. And there's very likely still some chunks in there. Is it possible to know if I got all the vinegar or baking soda out? No. And it's very likely there's still a little bit in there. So, what? I don't know. I know that a new tank, OE tank, is $1,500 on eBay. I know that Walbro 255 pumps are not. And fuel filters are not. They're considerably cheaper. So maybe it gums up a fuel filter or a pump or both. And I've got to replace that. The fuel filter that I got is a nice aeromotive unit. It should protect the injectors just fine. So I'm not worried about that. So I think it'll be okay. It's definitely better than it was. I'll let it dry here. I'm going out of town this weekend. I'll let it dry here until, when I get back on Sunday night. I'll check it out. And if it's nice and dry, then I will assemble the new fuel pump assembly. Not this nightmare. Get that guy in there. Get that guy in there. Over there. That area. And then begin making my new fuel lines, which will allow me to get rid of this line and this line. This is the charcoal canister, which I'll probably put somewhere else. I'll put one in here, but not there. This guy is, this is actually the clutch line, which I have to change anyways. These two are here. There we go, sorry. These two are my fuel lines. So these will get replaced. Not a lot done today, but I did get the gas tank mounted back in the car. And, and I measured for a custom drive shaft. In case you're curious, using the Garage Tuned super awesome custom transmission mount with the Aisin AR5 out of Colorado and the ISR engine mounts, the distance from the back of the output shaft, the transmission, is 49.5 inches. The tranny tunnel is about 5 inches wide at its widest point. No, at its thinnest point. And the output shaft is a 27 spline shaft, which according to the drive shaft folks is a very common Chevy output shaft configuration. The local drive shaft shop has roughly guesstimated me at $450. So they said they'd have that done by the end of the week. And once that comes in, I'll throw it in here. Tomorrow I'm going to come back out and continue working on the fuel system. I have my fuel pump assembly in. I'm going to take off and clean up this fuel level sender here, which honestly I think with a little bit of sanding it'll probably clean up okay. See, it's not bad. It's not terrible. I'll make sure this thing is still sealed. Still moves reasonably well. Yeah, I think with cleaning up, that'll be okay. So I'll get that cleaned up, and that and the new pump and the fuel pump assembly, I'll put those in the car, and then I'll begin measuring, cutting, and running the fuel lines. It is Monday today. I hope to have the fuel lines ran and completed by Wednesday. And then Thursday, I need to do the remote oil filter. So with this oil pan, you can see down there kind of right there, those two caps. This oil pan requires a remote oil filter. So those are AN10. I'm going to create some lines for that. Probably put the oil filter somewhere over here-ish. Somewhere. I should probably put the headers on to see how much room I've got. But I'll get that created on Thursday, hopefully. And if I have fuel and oil systems ready to go... Ah, crap. Then I've got to make the little brackets that go from here to here. Now I'm going to get this all dirty and gunky to keep the fuel rails on. But if I can get the fuel system done, I could potentially plug the ECU in and wire it up and be able to start this thing, be able to start this thing this weekend. So that's my goal. I want to have the fuel system done and the oil system done so I can start it this weekend. Stick around, we'll see if I make it. On today's agenda, first things first, I've removed the rear two coil packs from their mounting area. I'm going to pull off the clutch hard line and the hard line for the charcoal canister. Now, I've debated a lot on this just due to my own lack of knowledge. And in my research, I found that the charcoal canister's job is to take the vapors that come from the gas tank, it brings them up here into the engine bay, and works as part of the emission systems to then take those vapors and pass them into your intake manifold when the conditions are correct. Correct RPM, correct load, whatever it is. Okay. The charcoal portion is to help cut the smell down and to help keep the vapors from getting into your hot engine bay. This is not, however, required hardware from what I've learned. I could be wrong. In that it's not to help vent the pressure created by the vapors. It's more for emissions to make your car more efficient. So, on a classic car where emissions might not matter as much, on a race car, it shouldn't be entirely necessary. Therefore, my plan is to remove the hard line that goes all the way back to the gas tank. It's not connected right now. And just cap it off with a vacuum cap. I believe that is the best option. As for the hard clutch line, it currently goes from the clutch slave here over to the far side of the car, the passenger side. However, the clutch slave for this guy is right here. So it doesn't need to go over there. So what I will likely do is make a hard line that goes from here under the brake booster and then over to here somewhere. I've got to put the headers on to see what kind of room I have first, but then I'll figure that out. So, those two hard lines coming off first. Man, what a pain in the butt with this clutch line. This fitting was stuck so tight, I had to cut the hard line down and get a socket on it. I couldn't even use the box end of a box end wrench. I had to get a socket on there. And it's probably due to it being stripped over the years, but what a pain in the butt. Luckily, I'm not reusing that hard line. After minimal drama, the engine bay portion of the charcoal canister and the clutch hard line, soft line, and slave are out. Now to pull the fuel lines and the charcoal canister hard line that goes from the front of the car to the back. And fuel hard lines and charcoal canister hard lines removed. Now normally, I would say just keep the fuel hard lines, keep the fuel hard lines there and use them. But with how dirty the fuel, how dirty the fuel tank was, I don't know that I trust these to not be, right, that I trust these to be any better. I've got enough dash 6 line to run from the fuel tank up to here. So that's what I'm going to do. I will pull off this, remove this guy here, and then after dinner I'll come back out and begin running the lines from the tank up to the engine bay. I do have to find a clever place to mount my new filter, but perhaps right here, I guess, wouldn't be bad. I'm not using this area for anything. I'll figure it out. All right, I got the, let's focus here a second. I got the longer bolts and the transmission mount thing, so I can fit my lock washer and washer on there now. It's good. $8,000 freaking giant 5/8 by 3.5 with 11 thread pitch. You're not cheap, man. Since my fuel pump assembly was garbage, I picked up a Deutschwerks X1, what do they call it? I don't know, DW hanger fuel pump system. I already had a Walbro 255 pump, so I didn't get one that came with a pump. So I'm going to put this here. It's just sitting in here for now. I threw the, it's hard to see in the dark, I threw the dash 6 connectors on. They're just kind of loose on here so that I can now begin cutting and measuring, or measuring and cutting my fuel lines. As I'm fitting my fuel lines, I wanted to put my headers in so I knew where they ran. And let me tell you, it's a little blurry, I'm sorry, but this is where the starter goes, and here are the headers, and I've got maybe a 1/4 inch of space. So with the AR5, these are the ISR swap headers, and it does fit, but oh boy is it close. This is the passenger side. The driver's side, I'm going to need to pull out my steering shaft before I can fit that one. This is not, there's no way. No way with the steering shaft in place. So we'll see what happens there. But hey, rock on. At least this side is fitting. I just put it in with two bolts for now to hold it in place while I work on the fuel system. Well, as always, my stupidity astounds me. So I got the first fuel line all plumbed up before realizing that I didn't put my fuel filter in anywhere. So tomorrow I'm going to go pick up a riv nut tool. Somehow I've made it this far without having one. And then I will likely mount this somewhere under the car. There's no good place in the engine bay here where I can mount it flat and have it kind of routed well. That said, I think it looks pretty freaking cool with the exhaust manifold on there. I had to dig around. I couldn't find my exhaust manifold bolts, but I found them, so that's good. I'll get the exhaust manifold in there properly tomorrow, as well as the fuel filter somewhere. It's an Aeromotive fuel filter with Evil Energy 2-inch fuel filter mounts. Yeah. Progress continues. Progress continues. All right. More progress made. So now I was working on the return fuel line. Goes from this fuel rail to my fuel pressure regulator. I did have to order a block-off cap for this side. It's on its way. From there it goes down to the back of the car to the fuel pump assembly. In the past, I have attempted AN line stuff, and it did not go well, and I hated it. And I am now learning the problem was me. Well, the problem was my decisions, I guess. I ordered very cheap China AN line garbage. If you're gonna do AN lines, just buy once, cry once. Buy good China stuff or, reasonable America stuff, and your life will be so much easier. I'm gonna buy a AN line testing kit that comes with a fitting for one side. That's like a block off fitting, and a fitting for the other side's got a bike pump valve on it, so you can pressurize it. And I'm gonna pressure test all these lines that I've made, and yeah, just make sure they're good. I still have to mount my fuel filter. My riv nut stuff is coming on Friday. Today's Wednesday. So I want to find a place for it under the car, install it, and then I'll trim my feed line to accept it. I also ordered a bunch of P-clips with the rubber little insert thing on there, rubber bushing, so that I can then install some riv nuts and P-clip the fuel line all the way back. I'm only going to P-clip one of the two lines, and then I'm connecting two lines together. Oh, my garage is such a freaking mess. With these guys here. So the fuel lines will be connected together all the way back, and the P-clips will hold it to the chassis. So, next I need to pop the drive shaft out, the steering column out. I need to get the exhaust header in place. And then I can work on the remote oil filter lines. I can already tell those probably won't be super fun. What I'm thinking of doing is bringing them over here somewhere and then making a little plate so that I have a flat surface. And I'll mount the plate here with a couple of riv nuts, and then I'll bolt the oil filter to that. Somewhere here, maybe further up over here, out of the way of the exhaust headers, and somewhere where it'll be easier to deal with during oil change time. But that'll be next. Just for a really quick observation here a second. I stepped out to the garage to put some parts in here that I got on Amazon, stuff for tonight's work. And I figured I'd grab the S13 fenders that I've had for the car for a while. Ignore their condition, they need a lot of work. But I wanted to put them on so that I can get an accurate height off the actual unibody here to figure out exactly where I'm going to have issues with the engine. So I took some string, I drug it across roughly the same distance from each one. It's not perfect, but it doesn't really need to be for now. And as you can see, kind of looking over it, in the front here, clearly I'm going to have an issue with the intake. You can see, let me see if I can make the camera focus. You can see it peeking over there. At its highest spot, it's probably 2.5 inches, maybe not even that much, maybe 1.5 inches or so. Right about here, the front of the shock tower is about where it's even. It does touch on the Fast logo, but I think if that logo wasn't there, it'd be pretty much straight. And then slightly back, you can see it drops down significantly. So it's just this section here, right here, and whatever I decide to do for an intake, that's going to make things challenging. Now I've got this cheapo, I want to say it's a D-Max or something, FRP hood, that I'm not going to be too sad if I have to cut up at all. It looks like this area here is already raised a bit. So I think that'll help, but I may still have to trim in this area. If that's the case, I might cut out the hood vent and try and find what's a little bit taller in fiberglass and fiberglass it on. So we'll see. Now, after I make the new transmission mounts, this angle is going to change a little bit, and the front end will lower a little bit, but it's not going to be significant. Another thing that I could do is space the subframe down by maybe 1/4 of an inch. You can't go too far because the way that Nissan did the subframe is there's these essentially studs that go through from the top. So unless I wanted to make a new subframe, which is something that would be kind of cool to try. The most I can do with the existing subframe and studs is probably 1/4 of an inch. But maybe by tilting the engine forward, by raising the transmission about 1/4 of an inch, and lowering the subframe 1/4 of an inch, that's a 1/2 inch-ish. Well, no, it's not, but whatever. That's some. Either way, an interesting observation that I've been meaning to check out. It is kind of cool seeing the fenders just sitting on the car. It's been fenderless for so long. It's kind of neat. I can't put them on all the way because the blocks from the lift kind of prevent me from doing that. But you can imagine, right? You can imagine. It's kind of cool. I am going Still 80 with this. I've always wanted a Still 80. So I've got OE metal fenders that I bought a number of years ago. I have a couple different options for bumpers. I've got an OE bumper up there, which is great. But I've also, where is it? I've also got a Dorky Dory full body kit. So bumper, skirts, and rear valances. So I'm gonna mock them both up and see which one I feel like. They'll both be cool. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. I do have a brand new set of corner markers, a brand new set of bricks. I have the Sylvia grill, as well as this. What is this for? Is this for this car? I think it's for this car, but I might be drunk. Doesn't look like it's. Whatever. As well as this grill here. That may or may not be for this car at all. Who knows? So I've got some options when it comes to bodywork. I also have a Mishimoto oil cooler that I've had for like 15, no, probably closer to 20 years now. Just hanging out. Is it Mishimoto? I can't remember. I've got an oil cooler that exists that I think I will plumb into this car too, but I need to put the bumper on so I know where I want to put it in the front. That can happen after I get my remote oil filter stuff on. So this evening the plan is to take the steering column off, get the headers in. I don't understand how this is possible, but these are swap headers for this engine in this car with these engine mounts. So it's got to fit somehow. We'll see. Does it go around? It's going to be witchcraft. Maybe it fits using magic right there. But certainly not with the steering column in. Anyway, I'll get those in and then get the oil lines made tonight. Well, hopefully. I've got to find a place to mount the oil filter and then I can make the oil lines. Getting closer. I think maybe, if not this weekend, it's Thursday today, if not this weekend, then sometime this coming week, this thing will be ready to try and start. And that is horrifying and exciting. As I continue the adventure of getting the fuel system ready to go, Weston's here and he's helping me out today. We're working on getting the exhaust headers in so that we can then kind of plan out the oil lines. I guess it's not technically fuel system, but whatever. And to get the driver's side exhaust header, and I have to take the steering column down. And in taking the kick panel down here off, just 240 things. The hood release has been modified. That's it. And the wiring here has been delicately finessed, we can say. That's it. So, I think this is all from when it was converted from... no, it wasn't, because this was still single. I was going to say single to dual cam, but this was single cam when I got it. So I don't know what this horrifying nightmare of wiring is. But you know what? It's fine. Everything's great. Everything's great. And I'm not so sure you guys can see this or not, but my brother and I were working and we got the driver's side exhaust mocked up, and the little U-joint here on the steering shaft, when it rotates, hits this runner and this runner. This one we tapped out enough so it doesn't hit anymore. But this one, it still does. And we beat the crap out of that poor header. That thing's probably going to crack at some point, and it's entirely our fault, obviously. But we couldn't get it to go quite enough. So this Thursday or Friday, I'm finally going to give in and pick up an oxyacetylene torch so I can heat it up so I don't have to beat the absolute crap out of it to make it bend the last little bit. We're so close, and it's so incredibly frustrating. Additionally, let me see. I can't tell if this is in focus because it's so close. My eyes can't focus on it. Okay, yeah, you can kind of see this. So the swap oil pan takes the oil feed and return from the oil pump that would normally go to the oil filter, and it drops it off these two AN10 lines here. It just goes straight down. It's two AN10 fittings. And I bought these full flow 90s thinking that I could make that work, but I don't think it's going to work, because if I come straight off this way, well, that's kind of towards the wheel well. I really should go that way somewhere, but I can't do that with these, and because I don't know, I can't do that with these. So what I think I might do is get some AN10 180s. So they kind of come back up here. And I'll go AN to AN. And then I'll get a male to male AN. Then maybe do some 90s to send it that-ish way, perhaps. Or 45s. Maybe I bet 45s. I'll get some 90s and some 45s to go this way. And then I should be able to go above the steering rack, kind of, where's my hand? There you go. Hello. Over to here is kind of my thought. So I come up with the 90s, or the 180s, and then do some 45s, come up to here, and then maybe I can attach that oil filter to over here or something. I don't know, somewhere over here to where I can get to it without having to cut my arms off every time I want to do a frickin' oil change. I don't know. Who knows? That's the plan for right now. You know what I did accomplish, though, today, is I got the fuel pump mounted there now. That's good and solid. Just a M6 riv nut. It's not going anywhere. That said, I need to remake the return line because I didn't like how it sat, and I don't have any additional ferrules, so I can't reuse this, and I don't have any more 90s. So I love cars. Cars are so much fun. Fun cars. I know nothing looks new or exciting, but I tested both the sending and return fuel lines. I ordered all the parts to finish up the fuel system, and I started putting these little clipper doodles on tonight. These guys right here. There we go. And I tell you what, I'm kind of disappointed. Like, they kind of move freely. I was hoping they would be a little snugger. Maybe I can find some way to, I don't know, wrap some electrical tape around the fuel lines there to fatten them up just a little bit so it's snug around them and keeps them in place. Either way, next is installing the P-clips to hold the fuel lines in place. Boo, why don't my little line holdy things fit? Well, because you're an idiot, Phil. That's why. Because you're using the -10 line holdy things on a -6 line. That's why. Nobody should ever listen to me, because I am a moron. Wrong size. Wee. Right size. Ugh. Okay. This makes me feel much better than the other night. So this is gas tank, feed, and return line. Is that right? No, feed and return. Who cares? Lines coming from the gas tank. There's a little bit of extra slack sitting on top to where I could you know, twist them a little bit. So if something has to move, a little bit there. I go up over the subframe, over the output shafts here. I go to this factory mount. Oh gosh, you can't see that, can you? This factory mount here, which you can barely see. Just a zip tie around that. That kind of holds it up. It's a bit tight under here, but I don't feel any kinking, and that's the big concern you always have to have with PTFE lines is kinking. So once they're kinked, they're toast pretty much. So you can see it goes from that mount down here to where I just zip tied it to this other factory mount. Just keep it in place. Even if that mount's not there, it's going to be fine. Yeah, okay. So from there, I have the correct little clampy doodle. I come to P-clip on the feed line, P-clip on the return line, clampy doodle, maybe 1.5 foot, P-clip, return line, clampy doodle, P-clip feed line, clampy doodle. And then going up there, hard to see, clampy doodle. So it's tucked pretty well up against the chassis. The rail here is lower than the lines are all the way back. I'm pretty happy with this. It's far enough away from the exhaust that it's hard to see, I know, that it shouldn't be an issue with heat. Yeah, I feel a lot better than this tonight than I did last night, so it's good. First thing back from my Japan trip. I was there for 8 days, just got back a couple days ago. Getting back to working at 240. Is this little coolant loop here. And I debated what I wanted to do with this for a while. My initial thought was pull these two fittings out and tap it and put in just plugs for now. And then later run NPT to AN fittings back to the coolant stuff. And I still like that idea, but the reason I'm not putting just plugs on there is because from the factory, the coolant will flow from here through the heater core to this side of the thermostat, and then slowly, I don't know what the right term is, transiently, I guess, on its own, it'll flow through the radiator to some extent. So to some extent, coolant is always going through the radiator, even with the thermostat closed. And with that in mind, I thought maybe it's a good idea to allow it to still do that. And so that's why I went with a cheap, it's like $8 for this little loop thing. Cheap little loop thing to do that. So, thing one for the day. Next thing, I got the radiator more or less in place. A little bit of a challenge. The car is 30 years old. It's been in an accident. I know it's a little twisty up here. And so it wasn't perfect. Like oftentimes has to happen when you have these cars, I had to grind away this little lip over here because it was pressing against the radiator. And for whatever reason, the bushings that I got, I thought I ordered OE bushings, but these are, kind of hear it, these are hard. And the OE ones are soft rubber. So I've got to find new actual bushings and not these hard things. I did get brand new top mounts here. And I had to drill this hole out a little bit bigger just because, like I said, the front's twisted just a little bit. But thing number 2, done. And the AN6 fuel rail crossover, done. And now the fuel return line that comes from here to an AN645 to the other side fuel rail to a 90. And I left some slack there, so when the engine shifts a little bit under revving, it's got some slack to deal with. Alright, I don't know how well this is appearing, but you can kind of see what I've got going on for my oil feed and return lines too. Where I come out of the bottom of the oil pan here to the remote oil filter, and I'm going from two 180 AN10s to a male-to-male AN10 adapter to a couple of 45s up here, and that'll send it forward. Now, that's kind of close to my exhaust header there, maybe 2 or 3 inches. So I'm going to see if maybe I can find some heat wrap or something to put around the lines over here, just to keep them a little safer. Yeah. But either way, that actually clears now to where it didn't before, so it's good. And finally, I'll mount the remote oil filter right over here. I believe that was kind of the common consensus with everybody, kind of alongside the alternator here for maximum fire potential, with a couple of half-inch NPT to dash 10 AN fittings at 45 to kind of point there underneath that header. And you can kind of see through the header there. There you go, the other side. So there's going to be some slack in the middle. I just have to be careful about how I route it so that it doesn't touch the exhaust headers at all. As a quick unrelated side note, I got the ISR Y pipe to go with my ISR headers a million years ago, and I was certain this was not going to fit around that fat transmission mount I had to make. And amazingly it does, with like a ½ inch to spare on either side. So that's awesome. The engine is still kind of angled down towards the back, and I need to fix that. I'm going to use a couple washers to space down the subframe, maybe 1/4 inch on both sides, and then I will jack the back of the transmission up about 1/4 inch or so and tweak the transmission mounts. That should fix the angle. You can see it even more pronounced when you look at it here by the radiator. The radiator is more or less straight up and down, and you can see this part of the engine kind of leans back this way. So doing that will help hood clearance and level everything out. And I've left enough slack and things like the fuel lines, so when I do it, it's not going to hurt anything. I've been trying to figure out a good ending point for this particular episode because it just is rambling on. And I was trying to finish the fuel system, but it's just, you know, projects are forever. So I'm going to wrap this episode here. It is early to mid-November here in Minnesota right now. I still have a goal to start this car before the first snow really comes. And it's dusted now, but I mean, before the snow really comes, before they salt the roads. And if I can make it work, I would like to at least just take it up and down the street one time, before I'm locked in for the winter. So I'm working at it, guys. I'm trying. Where's my drive shaft? Over there. I did call the drive shaft shop the other day because, as I think I showed you, it doesn't slot fully in. And I think it's just this transmission is shallow. And so what I might try and do, and I talked to the drive shaft shop, they'll do the same thing, is I might just trim this down a bit. And that they would do the exact same thing. So I'm just going to take a cutoff wheel. I'm going to measure, figure out how much I got to cut off, and I'm just going to cut off the tip here, and I'll give it a light, crappy chamfer to fit it, to get it to length. Then once it's to length, and I know it fits and I can bolt everything up, I'll take it back off and take it to the drive shaft shop so they can put it on their lathe and cut it off cleaner, just a little more, and fix the chamfer. So I'll work on that this week too. And at that point, the drive line to the back is connected. So when the engine runs, it would, in theory, be capable of driving. That said, I still have to finish the fuel system. I have to make little mounting doodles to go from here to the fuel rail. So the fuel rail doesn't come flying off the second I put 53 pounds of fuel or whatever it is through it. I need to finish the suspension and torque all the suspension bits down. I need to finish the brake lines. One of the brake lines and one of the calipers isn't connected. Wiring an ECU. Projects are rough, man. But we'll get there. A little bit every day, hour or two a day. I'll freaking get there, but thanks for hanging out with me and helping to keep me motivated. I appreciate it. I'm hoping that before this snow comes, or at the very least in the spring, I can take this out and show you guys my vision for this car. Share it with everybody. So, thanks for watching, folks. I'll see you in the next one.